CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories: aerospace and renewables on the agenda. China and Algeria commit to strengthen ties as the two presidents meet in Beijing. Our other headlines: a tale of two seasons. Heat waves burn forests and homes in Europe, while a typhoon lashes China with tropical storms and flash flooding.
I'm Giles Gibson in Rome, where temperatures are hitting their peak, but this heat wave is far from over.
And a turning point in the fight against Alzheimer's, as a new drug is shown to slow the progression of the disease. China and Algeria are strengthening their trading relationship. Algeria's president has arrived in Beijing on a state visit. China's president, Xi Jinping, says both sides should deepen collaboration in infrastructure and agriculture, as well as aerospace and renewable energy. Our correspondent Wang Mengjie reports from Beijing.
During the talks, President Xi and President Tebboune have jointly charted the future growth of China-Algeria ties and held an in-depth exchange of views on regional and international issues. Noting that this year marks the 65th anniversary of the establishment of bilateral ties between China and Algeria, President Xi expressed China's commitment to work with Algeria to enhance the existing strategic partnership. President Xi called on both sides to support each other on core issues, hoping the two countries to continually enhance cooperation in various key sectors, including agriculture, food security, technology, renewable energy, infrastructure development such as roads and ports. In response, President Tebboune said China is the most important partner and friend for his country. He spoke highly of China's role in dealing with regional hotspot issues and the constructive role China played in promoting regional and global peace and stability. President Tebboune said Algeria is willing to work closely with China in international and regional affairs. After their meeting, President Xi and President Tebboune witnessed the signing of cooperation documents on various fields and issued a joint statement on bilateral cooperation. We know this is President Tebboune's first China visit since taking office, but bilateral friendship is now being highlighted for the first time. In the new era, ties are growing stronger. The two sides established a comprehensive strategic partnership in 2014, making Algeria the first Arab state to forge one with China. Both sides have also had fruitful cooperation under the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative. A trade between the two countries reached $9.4 billion in January 2023, a 60% increase compared to the year prior. To better combat COVID-19, Algeria helped produce China's Sinovac vaccines, and the country also sent its first communication satellite with China's help. As long-term partners, the friendship between China and Algeria has weathered all kinds of global challenges. That experts say President Tebboune's visit will now bring ties to a higher level, building stronger branches from the deep roots.
China's Premier Li Qiang says climate change requires all countries to strengthen coordination and speed up their action. Premier Li was talking during a meeting with the US climate envoy John Kerry in Beijing. Kerry said Washington is willing to strengthen cooperation with China to address climate change and other pressing global challenges. Earlier, Kerry met with China's senior diplomat Wang Yi, where he said climate talks could provide a new start to relations between the two countries.
The world really is looking to us for that leadership, particularly on the climate issue. Climate, as you know, is a global issue, not a bilateral issue. It's a threat to all humankind.
Our correspondent Dong Shui is in Beijing.
Kerry's third day in Beijing began with a meeting with senior Chinese diplomat Wang Yi. They held a nearly 2 hour of talks earlier this morning at the Great Hall of the People. And in the opening remarks, Wang Yi urged Washington to take pragmatic and active policies to push forward future cooperations. And he said there is huge potential for cooperation between China and the United States in terms of climate. But at the same time, this cooperation relies on mutual understanding between the two countries. And Wang then said that he appreciated Kerry's work in pushing for climate cooperation since being appointed as a special envoy for climate change in the U.S. He said his work as a special envoy could be of long-term benefit for humanity. And he reiterated that building a green, low-carbon and sustainable development path for all nations was not only important for the next generation, but also a shared international responsibility. Wang then referred to President Xi Jinping's goal of building a shared future for mankind, saying climate cooperation is an inevitable part of that goal and that Beijing is willing to strengthen talks and search for better mutual solutions. Wang then expressed the hope that Kerry could play a positive and active role in pushing forward for future cooperation. Kerry obviously echoed this sentiment, saying he looks forward to being able to move forward and change the dynamics in the current bilateral relations. He said President Biden is very committed to stability within the China-U.S. relationship and also to working together to make a significant difference in the world. He said, and I quote, "We both know there are real differences, but we also know that from experiences, if we work at it, we can find the path ahead in ways that resolve these challenges." And the world is really looking to U.S. For that leadership, particularly on the climate issues. So both sides are calling for a change in the broader relationship in the hope that climate change cooperation could be that oasis amid the desert that in this strained bilateral relationship. Kerry also met with Chinese Premier Li Qiang earlier today and is scheduled to speak to the press tomorrow before he leaves the country. Well, it's his third visit to China as U.S. climate envoy, and the trip marks the formal resumption of top-level climate diplomacy between the two countries.
Well, extreme heat continues to affect much of Japan, with temperatures there topping 37 degrees Celsius in Tokyo. The government has issued heat stroke alerts for almost half of the country. Almost 4,000 people have been hospitalized with heat stroke in recent days. Temperatures are forecast to ease from Wednesday, with rain expected in some areas. Southern China is being lashed by a typhoon, causing damage and flash flooding. Authorities have stepped up emergency measures after Typhoon Talim made a second landfall in Guangxi province. It's now weakened to a tropical storm. On Monday evening, 230,000 people were told to leave their homes in Guangdong province. And temperatures in the U.S. city of Phoenix have topped 43 degrees Celsius for the 19th day in a row. Overnight temperatures haven't dropped below 35 degrees for 4 nights running. In Texas, demand for power has hit a record high as homes and businesses turn up the air conditioning in a bid to try to keep cool. And the intense heat continues in southern Europe. Parts of Italy are currently sweltering in the mid-40s, not far off a continental record of 48.8 set in 2021. Spain has also faced consecutive heat waves, with temperatures there hovering around 44 degrees in the south. Forecasters are warning that the extreme heat will continue for several days and that new records could be set. Well, the Italian island of Sardinia is one of the areas experiencing those searing temperatures. Italy's national forecaster is also predicting record heat in Rome. Our correspondent Giles Gibson is there for us. How are people coping there, Giles?
Well, Jamie, the authorities have been asking, or you could say pleading with people to stay indoors during the hottest part of the day. And of course, if you're an office worker or someone who works from home, that is fairly doable. You can, shelter in your air conditioning if you have it. But for some people in this city, for many people in this city, it's simply not possible. trade unions here in Rome at the start of the day issued a call really for the authorities to shut down construction sites, basically making the argument that it's just far, far too hot for people to be doing that kind of manual labor outside. But so far as we can tell, those calls have gone unheeded. And the other group of people that the authorities are really concerned about is tourists, because of course many of them have spent thousands of dollars on flights coming over from the US or China or other parts of Europe, and now there is that temptation to sort of make the best of it, to go to the Colosseum, to go to the Pantheon and continue with their holiday, despite the fact that we have these temperatures now over 40 degrees Celsius. And I was just looking at a live camera overlooking the Colosseum just a couple of minutes ago, and I can tell you there are still many people who are going out and taking in the sights despite this oppressive and perhaps dangerous heat.
And further south, temperatures seem to be edging towards a European record.
Yeah, this is the sort of hottest part of the day, what we're approaching in really the peak of this heat wave. So this, in the next couple of hours, is when we could see some records broken. I'm just seeing actually a report from the Corriere della Sera newspaper saying that we have actually now gone through the record here in Rome, saying that 40.8 degrees has been recorded here in Rome, which would beat the previous record for the city of 40.7. We still need to get confirmation from the authorities on that. Looking further south, we are still a little bit of a way off some of the sort of record-breaking temperatures that we were being predicted. We've got Agrigento in Sicily, currently at about 43 degrees Celsius. Oristano in Sardinia, still at 42. So we're still sort of 4 or 5 degrees away from the all-time European record of 48.8 degrees. And just finally, the thing that I think is really concerning authorities is that even if we don't break that record, these temperatures are just not going to drop off very quickly, despite the fact that we're going through the peak of this. We are still, for example, here in Rome, going to see temperatures of, 38, 39 degrees right into the start of next week or even into the middle of next week.
Giles, thank you for that. Our correspondent Giles Gibson in Rome. Well, hundreds of firefighters in Greece are continuing to battle 3 wildfires that broke out on Monday around the capital, Athens. Forests, homes and farmland have been destroyed as recent extreme heat there created very dry conditions. Let's talk to our correspondent Evangelo Sipsas in Athens. Evangelo, what's the latest you have there?
Well, Jamie, I wish I could tell you that things right now are better, but unfortunately they are not. Our conversation yesterday, towards the end of it, the fire was descending, but here now we're in a different part of the city. We are in the northwest of the Greek capital in an area called Vervinochoria. It's an area that is dominated by forest land, pinewood forests, and right now there's a number of fronts that are burning. Just behind me, there is a factory that is on fire. Helicopters are flying overhead to put it out. The authorities are saying right now that if they combine all those fronts together, it makes one large one about 15 kilometers long. And with these winds that we're talking about right now, close to 130 kilometers an hour, you can imagine how that is a perfect combination for a disaster. And that's what the authorities are saying. Right now, we're hearing some explosions in the back there. Some generators are exploding because of the electricity. We're safe here because we're quite from a distance, but unfortunately this just gives you an example of what is happening right now, how serious the situation here is just north of the Greek capital.
With firefighters battling these wildfires, I wonder what disruption has been caused beyond the wildfires.
I mean, most of the authorities, police, EMS, ambulances, firefighters, they're all here, even those foreign firefighters, for that exchange program that the European Union has done with the countries of the Mediterranean, sending firefighters in the areas that are mostly affected. We just saw a group of Romanian firefighters coming to assist. Now, in the center of Athens, of course, there's a lot of disruptions. Just earlier today, there was a number of traffic lights that were not working. There was no police present. because of these fires. We're talking about police officers around the areas here where I am, about 6,000 to 7,000 police officers trying to help and to take everybody away from their homes. So you can imagine if that number of police officers are away from areas like Athens, the disruptions are quite a lot. There's a lot of traffic in the area, but there's also a lot of issues with tourism, of course, because it's very difficult for planes to come and land due to the thick smoke that is over the airport, the international airport outside of the Greek capital.
Evangelo, thank you for that. Our correspondent Evangelo Sipsas in Athens. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, saving the shipping routes to feed the world. Ukraine's president says the Black Sea grain deal can still work despite Russia's withdrawal.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
There's a new agenda for a new world, accelerating change in almost every part of our lives. It's shifting the norms of how we work, travel, and connect. How we think, interact, and develop. It's a new reality, a new agenda with me, Juliette Mann.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
One more offensive in a long line of battles that's been ongoing for more.
Just got to be careful here with some gunshots. Excuse us, excuse us.
The world today matters for your world tomorrow.
The number of casualties is growing quickly.
Why, this is one of the hardest hit towns in the region.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Aerospace and renewables on the agenda. China and Algeria commit to strengthen ties as the two presidents meet in Beijing. Our other headlines, a tale of two cities. Heat waves burn forests and homes in Europe, while a typhoon lashes China with tropical storms and flash flooding. And Italy braces for record temperatures with red alerts issued for 20 major cities in a heat wave that's far from over. Ukraine's president says his country should continue exporting grain despite Russia withdrawing from a key initiative to safeguard supplies. Volodymyr Zelensky says the Black Sea grain deal remains valid and that his country will find alternative safe routes for ships. Our correspondent Louise Greenwood reports.
The last ship to leave Odessa under the Black Sea grain deal being inspected in waters off Istanbul. Russia is suspending participation, saying it hasn't received safeguards for its own agricultural exports. But Ukraine's president says Moscow's withdrawal shouldn't mean the end of the wider arrangement.
Everyone has the right to stability. Africa has a right to stability. Asia has a right to stability. Europe has every right to stability. And therefore we must all care about security, about protection from Russian madness. And the Black Sea Grain Initiative can and should continue to work. If without Russia, then without Russia.
There's been widespread condemnation of Russia's exit from the deal. Humanitarian groups say that since it began a year ago, it's ensured vital food supplies to countries in desperate need. Now, as Moscow quits, the price of wheat and corn has jumped.
The bottom line is it's unconscionable. It should not happen. This should be restored as quickly as possible. And I hope that every country is watching this very closely. They will see that Russia is responsible for denying food to people who are desperately need it around the world.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's main Black Sea ports of Odessa and Mykolaiv were targeted in a wave of overnight attacks. Moscow described it as mass revenge strikes for what President Vladimir Putin called a terror attack on Crimea's Kerch Bridge on Monday.
This crime is senseless. From a military point of view, it has no significance, since the Crimean Bridge has not been used for military transportation for a long time. And inhumane, because innocent civilians were hurt and killed. There will, of course, be a response from Russia.
Turkey, which is a signatory to the Black Sea Grain Deal, along with the United Nations, also insists that the initiative is salvageable. President Erdogan, currently on a trip to the Gulf, says he'll discuss the matter with Vladimir Putin next month when the Russian president visits Turkey. But with Russia now warning that it can no longer offer security guarantees to vessels using Black Sea shipping routes, rising prices for basic foodstuffs and a more uncertain situation for exports now looks inevitable. Louise Greenwood, CGTN.
It's been called a turning point in the fight against Alzheimer's, a new drug which appears to slow cognitive decline. Global trials of donanemab show it to be effective in the early stage of the disease, with sufferers developing serious symptoms around 20 to 30% later than normal, allowing them to carry out normal daily activities for longer. Well, let's talk to Professor John Hardy, Chair of the Molecular Biology of Neurological Disease at UCL's Queen Square Institute of Neurology in London. Professor John, welcome. Is this the end, the beginning of the end, or the beginning of the beginning of the end? I mean, how significant is this breakthrough?
It's the beginning of the beginning of the end. A bit later than that, perhaps, because there was another drug with very similar properties announced by Eisai in November. This was by Lilly today. So we've now got two drugs, both hitting the same target, both causing a slowing of decline, as you said, around 30%. So this is a very important confirmation.
Without scaring us with the PhD science, how does this drug work?
Very simple. It sucks amyloid out of the brain. Amyloid is a protein which builds up in Alzheimer sufferers, like cholesterol in heart disease, and these antibodies basically suck the amyloid out of the brain.
And I know this is a really unfair question, but I'll ask you anyway. I mean, how much closer does the ability to slow the disease down bring us towards treating it entirely?
Oh, we're away from that yet. We've still got stuff to do. As you indicated, it's slowing, not stopping. So we have to understand why it isn't stopping, what other targets we need to hit. Maybe one thing we definitely need to do is get better at diagnosing the disease earlier. It's possible, there is a little bit of data suggesting this, that the drugs would work better if we could diagnose earlier.
To what extent does this breakthrough give something of a morale boost to the research of other progressive brain diseases caused by gradual damage to the brain?
Oh, I think we're, you know, it's always dangerous to say this sort of thing, but this feels, as a researcher, to be a golden era now of research in this area. We've had very exciting data in the last couple of years about motor neuron disease as well, and also hopeful data about Huntington's disease. So we're beginning to understand enough about these neurodegenerative diseases to start to chip away. Plenty still to do, but the air in the research is definitely optimistic.
You will know well, of course, that patients and their families seize upon news like this and announcements like this. Realistically, how long before this kind of breakthrough becomes prescribed?
Well, in the States, the Federal Drug Administration have actually passed this. So in the States now, the first of these drugs is actually available. How many centers are able to do the work to actually give the drug, I don't know. That's going to take a while, even in the States. Here, I'm I'm actually at the Alzheimer Congress at the moment in Amsterdam, but my home country is London, England, and there it's going to be another 2 or 3 years, I think, before we pass the regulatory hurdles and start to make it available.
And what's the significance of the timing? Why now? Was this just a group of you? Was it about timing? Was it about funding? Was it about pandemic? What made it happen now?
So we've had a lot of failed clinical trials over the last 10 years before these successful ones. And we now understand why the failed clinical trials prevented amyloid building up. But the drugs were given so late in the day that the amyloid was already there. And I think we called them failed clinical trials, but they were learning opportunities for us. And the learning was that we realized that we had to actually clear the amyloid out of the brain. It took several failed trials for if you like, the penny to drop that that's what we needed to do. And that's been, I'm going to call it the holdup, but that's how research is. You learn from your mistakes, and that's how it works.
Professor, we wish you continued success with your work, and thank you very much for your time and expertise today. Professor John Hardy from UCL in London.
Thanks for having me.
While Brazil is known worldwide for its Amazon rainforest, it's also home to another tropical forest containing many species that are under threat. The Atlantic forest is also where you'll find the tree that gave the country its name. From Rio's Botanical Garden, our correspondent Lucrecia Franco.
It covers an area of 140 hectares and is home to more than 22,000 plants, with a strong representation of Brazilian flora, mainly from the Atlantic and Amazon forests. Within the breathtaking Rio de Janeiro Botanical Garden, one native species stands out, the pau-brasil, or Brazil wood tree, which gave Brazil its name. And like many endemic Atlantic forest trees, it is threatened with extinction.
Pau-brasil has been extensively exploited, first due to a red dye extracted from it to color noblemen's attire. And even today, its wood is highly sought after because it is used to make violin bows, and ongoing deforestation has kept it on an official list of endangered species.
According to a recent survey conducted by the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics, nearly 3,000 fauna and flora species in the Atlantic forest are at risk. The survey is based on studies carried out right here at the Botanical Garden, where a team of researchers showed that Brazil's Atlantic forest biome has the highest percentage of threatened plant species in the country. And now the garden's researchers are using a technology called LiDAR, light detection and ranging, to prove the importance of standing forests.
This cutting-edge technology that uses beams of light is helping us calculate the garden tree's carbon capture, their location and height. The lighter they appear on the map, the taller they are.
This African mahogany tree, for example, was found to be the tallest, measuring almost 50 meters tall, equivalent to a 15-story building. Originally created in 1808 during Brazil's colonial period to acclimate plants from other continents and to boost the economy, today's Rio's Botanical Garden is a laboratory dedicated to study them and, most importantly, to keep them alive. Lucrecia Franco, CGTN, Rio de Janeiro.
The headlines again: aerospace and renewables on the agenda. China and Algeria commit to strengthen ties as the two presidents meet in Beijing. Our other headlines: Italy braces for record temperatures with red alerts issued for 20 major cities in a heat wave that's far from over. And that is The World Today. Thank you for watching. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.